the permission that you have, right? I mean, Montaigne said this in The Creation of the Essence. It's the story of thought, right? It's really about following the meanderings of the mind, right? You throw it a subject matter, you throw it an experience, and see where it goes. Now, sometimes I think one of the stereotypes of CNF, right? Because you read it, it looks impromptu. It looks sort of in the moment, and so the craft of bringing those threads together is often erased, along with the immense research that often goes into these. We don't have citations, so I've spent months, researching details that ended up in one sentence as a kind of throwaway thought, right? So we don't have it, it's not obvious in the work, so that can sometimes work against us. But this piece, it depends on the piece. This piece was one of the rare occasions where it just flowed. I was at Planet Fitness. I said to my wife Stephanie before I left, I said, I don't know when I'm going to be back, right? I'm going to go there and I'm going to exercise, but I'm going to also sit down and gather my thoughts about what this place has meant. And then all these different things started to come through, and I also cut it in half as well, and I drew from that initial brainstorming event, and it came together rather pretty quickly, faster than most of my work does, because I'm a very slow writer. Others have taken decades. I mean, I wrote a piece about living in a boarding house in Iowa City with this very unusual landlord. That didn't go anywhere really until it was 20 years later when I was, or 10 years later, I guess, when I was here and I was teaching a class in nature writing about the Missouri River, and my grandfather died. And suddenly all these things started to come back together, but it took that long to do that. So it depends, but it's craft. That's when it feels impromptu, when it looks like that's a triumph of style, right? But it begins with just allowing yourself and giving your permission to digress, and that kind of discovery, exploratory approach.
And I find when it flows naturally, that's years of training behind it that causes things to flow naturally.
Yeah, because for everything you put in the essay, there's like 1,000 things that you cut out. You could have written about.
The old Jack Nicklaus line: the more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't get any easier. I talk to my students about this. Whether you've written books or whatever, the process doesn't get any easier. It just gets better because you're more practiced at it. You're more, that sort of thing. But it's still always difficult when you sit down at that blank page.